Good morning, everyone. I want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Daphney Smith-Jackson. I am a wife. I'm a mother of three. I am a self-made entrepreneur. I am the founder and CEO of Broker Builder Solutions, a North Carolina-based benefits and enrollment technology company. I am the founder and the CEO of Women Who Uplift, a nonprofit organization whose primary focus is mentorship, mentoring young women ages 14 and up to become better versions of themselves. Before I get started today, I want to take a moment to thank Barbara Martin and the Washington County Commission for Women for putting together this amazing expo. They've done a great job of shifting from a live experience to a virtual experience in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I would like to ask everyone this morning to kind of give them a virtual round of applause. And while you're doing that, I'd like you to also give yourself a virtual round of applause for getting up this morning to kind of empower yourself. I'm really excited today about sharing a little bit of myself and my story with you. The topic of this session is stretching yourself, reaching beyond your limiting beliefs. And so it's very interesting. As I was kind of sitting down and I was preparing for this, I kind of laughed to myself because I looked at the calendar and I said, September 26, 2019, a year ago, I was a month out from turning 43 years old, and I was 24 hours out from jumping on a flight to head to Atlanta with my coach Alam from Jawbreaker Boxing in Raleigh, and my husband, who was going to stand in as my ringside coach for me to go fight my first amateur boxing match. That's what I said, an amateur boxing match. And so it's funny because I replay a conversation I had with my grandfather and my Uncle Gregory, and they're like, girl, what's wrong with you? Have you been knocked upside your head one too many times? You're 43. What made you decide at 43 to go get in a ring and fight a fight? And so for me, kind of been fighting all my life, so it kind of really wasn't that far-fetched, right? So how many of you, let me ask, how many of you, life, it brings all kinds of jabs and quirky turns and uppercuts and things of that nature. How many of you are experiencing something right now in your life, whether it be being a better mother, whether it be just getting out of bed this morning, a new job, going back to school, dealing with these crazy times, have found yourself in a situation where you just felt like you were beat down. And so I like to refer to the first 22 years of my life as the beatdown. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into that. And so I was born, right? 1976, August 25th, I was born. And so if you look at my left eye, or maybe it's my right eye, I get a little bit confused these days. So I was born with this lazy eye, this birth defect. And so I would find, as I would venture off into pre-K, into elementary school, that I would often be the butt of kids' jokes. And these days they call it bullying, right? Nasty names, One-Eyed Willie, Popeye the Sailor Man, you're a pirate. And so I got made fun of a lot. And because of that, from early on, it diminished my self-confidence. I'll tell you, Popeye, I didn't mind that name. Popeye, he was kind of a hero to me, right? If you know Popeye, I got to love spinach, and he eats that spinach and he gets these muscles and he goes and he beats everybody up, right? So Popeye, I didn't mind so much. So I'm dealing with his self-confidence, the lack of it, if you will, and the greatest man in my life, my father, Joseph Benjamin Folks. My father, he and my mother weren't married. I was kind of a love child, if you will. But the one thing that my father did do is he kind of reiterated to me all the time how beautiful I was. He knew that this eye had me feeling that, I'm less than. And so it was important to him for me to know, go out, be you, Daphney, and don't be ashamed of it. My father would be taken away from me at the age of 7. He was shot and killed going towards Cumberland, shot 7 times, so he was murdered. 7 years old, I've already got this low self-esteem about me, and then there's grief. And it hit just kind of like a truck in the night, It was one of those jabs, and it's hard to come back from. So I go through that level of grief. I deal with that. I go on, and my mom, single mom, she raises myself and my 2 sisters, my sisters that don't have the same father as me. And so wonderful woman, outgoing personality, thought it was great to be a servant in your community. And so rightfully so, she would send her daughters out to be servants in the community. And so at that time, we lived in a little apartment, townhouse manor out on Dual Highway. If you're from Hagerstown, you're familiar with that. Right over next to the apartment complex, there's a nursing home. At the time, it was called Coltonville Nursing Home. So she would send me out, and I was 11, maybe 12 years old at the time. She would send me out to go volunteer. So anybody from Hagerstown knows that you would go and be a candy striper at the hospital. And so I volunteer, and I walk into my volunteer experience, and I'm going to serve my community, and I run into a gentleman at 11, 12 years old, and he begins to touch me in ways that one shouldn't touch an 11 or 12-year-old. So again, that inside, I didn't know what to do with that. Your parents raise you up and they tell you, don't let anybody touch you, that's wrong. But when it's happening to you, in your head, you know that it's wrong, but then your body responds. So you just don't quite know what to do with that. Another jab, another uppercut, if you will. So by this time, I'm 12 years old. I've got this defected left eye. My father is gone, the man that made me feel wonderful. And then I go to serve my community, and I'm violated. I stopped going to the nursing home. I got in a lot of trouble for it, but I just decided that I didn't want to go. I would get into, stubborn and hard-headed in my ways. I'd start to get into a lot of trouble. I think emotion, right? Now I know that I didn't know how to channel those emotions. So I'm trudging on through life, and I'm getting into these fights. We move at this time, and I go to South Hagerstown High School in special permission because we live in the North High district. I get kicked out of South High because I got into a fight, wouldn't you know, right? My mom takes me to North High, when I get kicked out, to go enroll me there because they said, hey, you got to go to your home school. Didn't like it, didn't want to go there. South High, you got laid back people. North High, and they're stuffity and they're uppity and they're stuck up, and I just didn't want any part of that. So my mom drops me off there. She leaves me for the day, and I recall the last words I said to her was, I hate you. I hated her for something that I had done. I get home. The day was wonderful. I get home that day. I'm running home to apologize and tell her how great the day was. And I walk into my grandfather and my aunt and thinking, what are you doing here? Lo and behold, my mom had gotten into a very tragic car accident. Her legs were broken, her arms were broken, her jaw was broken. She would have to learn how to walk and talk and do everything all over again. And so she lived for a week, and the Lord calls her home. That right there was it was a moment, right? When you think of a boxing match, right? It's rigorous and it demands a lot from you mentally and physically. And so you're trying to stay in there with your opponent, and they knock you down. And so at that moment, it felt like I was knocked down. I was pulling on those ropes before the ref counted to 10 so that I could get back up. We deal with that, my sisters and I. And so I had met this gentleman before my mom died, 17-year-old guy, handsome guy, right? I thought he was the love of my life. We got engaged in some things that a 14-year-old probably shouldn't have been engaged in. But a month after my mom passes away, I find out I'm pregnant. So here comes another knock, right up to my head. Oops, upside your head, kid. Here comes another knock. So now I'm 14 years old. I'm carrying this baby. But I think, you know what? I've got the love of my life. You know what? It's okay. It's going to be okay. 15 years old, I have her at 15 years old. But before I had her, probably about 6 or 7 months, there was a day where I didn't go to visit him. And lo and behold, this man would become someone else. So I didn't go visit him. And when I would get there, I remember sitting in the room in this apartment, and I remember there being a baseball bat. And I thought it was kind of odd, right? Why do you got a baseball bat in here? He was disappointed, and he was upset that I didn't come see him the day before. So he takes that baseball bat and he cracks me across my legs. He doesn't hit me in this area because I guess that's his way of not hurting the baby. There's a curling iron in the room, and he begins to burn me with the curling iron on my arms. And as devastated as I was, I thought it was love. He does this because he loves me and because he cares about me. I didn't know any better. I deal with that. I try to get out of that relationship. I end up in a relationship with someone else, and lo and behold, at 16 years old, here I am knocked up again, right? I've baby number 2. I carry baby number 2, a little girl, till I was about 7 months pregnant. I go to the doctors, and lo and behold, she just stopped breathing. Her heart wasn't beating anymore. So they say to me, hey, you're going to have to give birth to this child, but your child's going to come out. She's not going to be breathing. 16 years old, you're kind of not that bright. In my eyes, it was, okay, well, I had baby number 1, and this is going to be the same scenario. It's a little early, but I'm going to push that baby out, and she's going to be a crying baby girl. Much to my surprise, she wasn't. Devastating. a moment where you have to take a moment and you got to catch your breath. So that happens. I'm in school. I'm smart enough to get my work and turn it in, but I didn't go all the time. Sometimes I just didn't feel like getting out of bed and I just didn't want to be there. 17 years old, 3 weeks before graduation, Dr. Coley calls me in the office. Daphney, I'm sorry to inform you that you're not going to graduate. Dude, what do you mean? You see my grades? Like I have, but you got to be here. Oh, you can go to summer school, Daphney. I ain't doing that. So he makes me walk up to the Career Study Center, which is Tech High right now, makes me take the GED test, and I pass it with flying colors. So, when you talk about life and its ups and downs and how it beats you up, that first 22 years, from the day I was born to 18, 19, 20 years old, life was beating me up. It was knocking me down. How do you come out of that, So the pivotal point in my life, and so in this here in my head, I hear Rocky. Dun, 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 dun. This is where you turn it around, right? So 22 years old, I'm knocked up yet again, not doing much with myself, I'm working some jobs and things of that nature. But this one particular day, we lived in this apartment on East Avenue. Tried to keep it clean, tried my best. Neighbors move in, they're not so clean. I've got all these roaches and bugs crawling all over the place. I am looking at my children. I lose my job. I lose my vehicle. So I'm looking at my daughter who's 7 at the time, and I'm looking at my second son who's 3 at the time, and I'm looking at this round belly baby sitting in my belly, and I'm looking at them and I'm seeing the roaches crawl on the walls, and I'm looking at the refrigerator, and I don't have a job. I don't have a vehicle. And I looked at them and I said, I'm so sorry. And what did you do? Right? Daphney, what have you done? And I look up at the sky and I'm crying and I'm telling my parents, I'm sorry. So I have this moment. And so I say, you know what? Go get yourself together. I go in the bathroom, wipe my face off, and I look in the mirror. Right? So when I tell you, I hear this Rocky in my head, right? So I'm going to go back to the boxing ring a little bit, right? So you walk into a boxing gym, and I go in there for self-care, take care of myself, and I get in shape, right? So I decided that I wanted to fight this fight. And so when you're training to fight a fight, it's 5 to 6 days rigor. I tell you, you're running, you're jumping rope, you're at a bag constantly, you're doing mitt work, you got to eat right. So it takes a lot of commitment, right? The one thing that Coach Remy would say at the beginning of every boxing, and when I would go home, go shadow box, Daphney. So shadow box, there's a mirror, right? Just you and yourself in that mirror, right? And so you're really fighting yourself. 3 and 4 rounds, you're fighting yourself. 22 years old, I looked in that mirror and I began to shadow box, right? It was me and myself. There was a song by Michael Jackson at the time. I am starting with the man in the mirror and I'm asking him to change his ways. I looked in myself and I said, hey, you've got to change your ways. So I march up the street. Lucky for me, social services was right around the corner. I go and I apply for food stamps. I go and I apply for subsidized housing. It wasn't the end all be all for me, but it's what I had to do in that moment to go ahead and to make the change. I had to stop making excuses for myself. That was another thing that I told myself I had to do. There's a little saying that talks about the excuses being tools of the incompetent. And they are built on monuments of nothingness, and those that use them rarely amount to anything. I knew who my mother was. She was a strong woman. I looked at those babies of mine. I didn't want to amount to nothing. I didn't want those babies to amount to nothing. So I knew I had to stop making excuses. Yes, 22 years previously, life had beat me down. Some of it were the cards that were thrown at you, but some of it were choices that I made. I had to begin to make better choices. That included stop making the excuses, and now I had to kind of surround myself with a new circle of influence. I was still a little bit, my self-confidence wasn't always there, right? And so it wasn't easy for me to go out and say, hey, can you mentor me? The town that I grew up in, I often found that people were constantly pointing a shameful finger at me as opposed to reaching out a helping hand to help me. So I'm a studier, right? One thing I'll own, smart girl. So I began to study. I might see a woman in the grocery store with her child. I would get a job in customer service and I might study the executives, the managers, how to be a better version of me. And so I was taking those qualities and I was looking at people and saying, you possess a quality that I want to have. I pulled it, put it in a bowl, sprinkled some of Daphney, mixed it up and said, boom, now go be her. And so I started to walk in life and I started to gain this confidence and I was evolving, evolution, right? You get the opportunity to make that change. And so, you know, every now and again, I'd run into other people, and it could be women, it could be men, from all different diverse walks of life. And I just started to pull, and I would mix them in the bowl. Boom, now you go be them. So I had to change the circle of influence because everybody in your circle is not meant to go. The next thing that I had to do that was very important is that I had to believe in myself. When you're looking in that mirror and you're shadow boxing, or when you're in boxing class, right, you're tired, right? So a boxing, it's a 3-minute round. It's people, you're on the offense, you're on the defense, you're throwing punches and someone's coming at you, you've got to stick and move and you got to get out of the way. That's exhausting, let me just tell you, okay? But you've got a coach, and when you're in the class and you're hitting that bag and you're hitting that bag and you're hitting that bag, there's a person to the right and to the left of you, right? In boxing class, those people are often good at, if they see you're getting tired, that circle of influence, right? They tell you, pick it up, kid, you got it. And then when they can't, you've got to be able to influence yourself. So now, as I sit here and I say this to you, I see me on the 30-30-30 drill, and I'm exhausted. We're in that last 30 seconds, and that to the right and to the left, nobody's saying nothing. Come on, kid, you got this. It's me believing in myself and being my own biggest cheerleader, and you've got to learn to be that in order to evolve and to change. And then last but not least, the Lord. I applied the principles in the word of the Lord, and I made him my center. And from all of that, those 22 years of beatdown, let's fast forward. I'm now 44. First half of life, it was a beatdown. Second half of life, right? I am a mother of 3 children. They've all walked across the stage. You know, one of them's gone and gotten his degree. The other one, my younger one, he is in college right now. My daughter works for my company. I am, like I said earlier on, I am a founder and owner of Broker Builder Solutions. I built that company from my kitchen, 1 person to 12 people, and still growing today. I founded my own nonprofit organization. I've just recently this year received a champion award from Enterprising Women magazine for my business acumen. You know, I'm able to go back and give back to my community. And I did all of those things by stretching myself, right? If somebody would have looked and told me at 15 when I was delivering that baby that I would be standing here the way that I am today, I would not have believed that, right? But at some point I made a change and I applied some really basic and easy principles to be able to turn those things around, to reach beyond my limiting beliefs and know that it is within my reach. So what I challenge you to do today, I challenge you to think about that thing, right? And it may be one thing, it may be a couple things. Think about that thing that is causing you not to reach, that you feel is defeating you. I challenge you, change your circle. I challenge you to believe in yourself and be your own cheerleader so that you can go and you can reach beyond your limiting beliefs. That said, in closing, I want to leave you with this. I went and I fought that boxing match. Round one, first match, I won, TKO. 30 seconds, right? Second match, I went the distance. It was a split decision to my opponent. And so what I want to leave you with is, no matter how much you get in that ring and you fight your heart out, there's always going to be the win. There's always going to be a loss. And sometimes there's a draw, but you never stop trying. Thank you so much for your time today.